I am Sherry Naudine. I am the owner of Collegiate Sports Advocate, and we have 647 committed athletes as of today. We just had a young man from Hawaii commit to a baseball uh, location in Illinois, so we're super excited about that. And two of my favorite coaches, they know they are on here tonight. And we are going to talk everything Ivy League. So I want to first introduce Coach Jen Williams with Dartmouth. And Jen, you can just come off mute and introduce yourself and say a few words before we go to Coach Novi.
Thanks, Sherry. Hello, everybody. This is Jen Williams. I am the head coach at Dartmouth College, as Sherry said, and I'm entering my 7th season with that title. 2 of those we lost to COVID, unfortunately, so this will actually be my 5th complete season that I will be coaching the Dartmouth softball team. It's been a great ride so far. We're very excited for the year to come and happy to answer some questions. I know the application and recruiting process to the Ivy League looks a little different than a lot of places, and I'm excited to be able to help people understand that however we can and help them understand what a great place the Ivy League is. So looking forward to chatting tonight.
Fantastic. Coach Novi.
Hi, everyone. I'm Coach Novi, the head softball coach at Penn. Going on my second year at this helm, but have a lot of experience in a lot of different divisions and across different types of universities, and have been drawn back. Was once an assistant in the Ivy League and was drawn back to the Ivy League by this model. So definitely really excited to talk to you all about some of the things that we have to offer and a little bit more about this unique process that we have.
Fantastic. And I'm going to roll out a lot of real open-ended questions, and both of you can come off mic anytime you want, so I don't have to introduce you each time. If you want to respond or even, join in and have two voices, it's totally fine with me. But we get so many questions, and I think these coaches know how many student athletes CSA has put into the Ivy League. We have literally put one at every location. Right now we have 3 at UPenn. Dartmouth we haven't had in a couple years, so we're going to move on that one. But one of the questions comes in is, why is it so unique, and what makes it unique, and why is it a difficult recruit? Coach Jen Williams first.
So the Ivy League is unique in that we are a Division I conference with Division I athletics that is designed to combine a very high level Division I athletic experience with one of the best academic experiences in the world at some of the oldest and finest collegiate institutions in the world. The big difference with that is that means that in order to balance both of those things, our schedule with softball and what we can require our players to do looks a little bit different, while we are also competing with teams that can have a schedule that's a little bit more robust than what we can. And we can go into that a little bit more later tonight if you would like, but essentially it means that a lot more of our athletes' work is done on their own. They're getting themselves to the cages, they're getting themselves out to the field and getting their reps done, because we can do less required work with them than the rest of Division I. And the purpose of that is one of the best parts of the Ivy League, which is to make sure that we can not restrict majors. We can allow people to pursue any course of study that they want to. They can get internships, they can have jobs, they can do all sorts of things while being a Division I athlete. And I'm not going to say it's easy to do that, but it certainly is a unique and possible thing that is not possible at the rest of Division I. It's not the right fit for everybody, but for a student athlete that really wants that combination of experiences, there's no other place like the Ivy League for being able to provide the combination of things that they're looking for: a very high level athletic experience and an absolutely top tier academic experience that sets you up for life. So that is really what we offer. And I think with that comes challenges, but every school has challenges of one stripe or another. In the Ivy League, it's a little bit more about the balance of academics and athletics, which I'm sure we'll talk about. In other schools, there's a bunch of other challenges that come associated with that, whether it's trying to figure out how to get the major you want while being restricted by the coach you're playing for or the program you're playing for, whether it's financial aid, whether it's geography. There's a bunch of different things, whether it's playing time. There's always challenges. So those are things that are true in the Ivy League as well, and ours are just a little bit more centered around the academic experience.
Coach Novi, I'll just let you take over from there.
Well, Coach Williams said most of that. That was phenomenal, actually. I think something we take a lot of pride on being in the Ivy League is being part of the top 1%. Most of our players are 1% of those who get to go to Division One, and also 1% of those who get to study at a high academic level and compete at a high level. So we definitely take a lot of pride in that. And I think one of the things that also separates the Ivy League apart from a lot of other institutions is just the rich history of traditions and a lot of pride. So I think something we'll definitely dive into as we go through this conversation. But there's just more to being a student athlete at one of our institutions than there is at some others, just because the schools have been around for so long, and it's probably one of the most protected conferences in the country. So there's a lot of pride competing against each other, and also being a part of a network that's bigger than you. That's just a really big part of being part of the Ivy League.
Well, and Coach Williams mentioned some of the challenges. Top of mind, Coach Novi, what are some of the challenges for you getting the right kind of athletes and the right mix for your team?
Yeah, I think it's like about finding your drive early in life, making sure that you have a rigorous academic transcript going into this process, kind of identifying early that you are good at school and you're excited about learning. I think that's a really good part of this because, sometimes I think some people don't really realize it's like achievable until a little bit later in the process, and then they're trying to play catch up. But I feel like that's the biggest part of this thing is really just identifying early that you are interested, you think you can challenge yourself. I think it's more achievable for people than they actually realize, and maybe just taking some time to understand a little bit more about different processes and knowing that you take academics seriously and taking an open mind to what this could look like.
And Coach Williams, you mentioned some of the challenges. Can you add to that?
I think that some of the biggest challenges associated with being a student athlete in the Ivy League, it's about understanding how you operate as an academic as well as an athlete. And what I mean by that is you really have no choice other than to get put in a little bit of a high intensity, high pressure situation academically in the Ivy League, where you're trying to balance playing games, training, all of that, with taking very intense classes that are taught by some of the best professors in the world in their field of study. And so what that means is that then you have to figure out how you work as a student very quickly. Do you work best studying alone? Do you work best in groups? Do you work best working with one other person, with the two of you really problem solving together? Do you work best in a big group setting where you're going to additional office hours or you're going to additional study sessions? Do you need to go to all of the office hours for a class? Those are things that our students have to figure out as quickly as possible, and then figure out how to combine that with their softball work ethic and what they need there as well. If there's somebody who historically has been a very high rep number person for, let's say, bullpen, if I have a pitcher who really wants to be throwing for like an hour 15, hour 20 every time she bullpens, that's a pitcher who's probably going to have to figure out how to cut down on those rep numbers while being effective still and getting a good bullpen done in 45 minutes to an hour, because she doesn't really have time, and to be honest, her body will start to break down eventually, but she doesn't really have the time to do that anymore. And so they have to figure out how to be efficient, how to be effective, and then how to really be honest with themselves about what's working and what's not. What's worked in high school may not work for you in college, and the Ivy League will show you how it's not working, either through your grades or through your softball performance. So you have to really be honest with yourself and say, it's time for me to grow, time for me to learn about how to make some adjustments to do this better. And part of what the softball teams at our institutions do is provide support for that learning process and help you figure out and access resources to help you grow in that way.
And you mentioned a couple things, but I want to do a little house cleaning before. I forgot to mention down at the bottom, there's some emojis. If you see that little heart with the plus, you can give all kinds of little claps and hearts and, symbols to support the speakers while they're talking. And if you all don't mind hitting reply and sharing that you're on this space and how fabulous it is already. And we're just getting started. So the next thing, Coach Novi, I don't know if you had anything to follow up on that or if you had additional thoughts.
Yeah, I think I actually love the word efficiency for Coach Williams. I think that's a big part of what we do, and it's so cool to identify people that thrive under that platform. There's a lot of self motivation that comes with being a student athlete in the Ivy League, and I think that's definitely a big thing to highlight, and something that maybe separates them apart from some of their peers as they're going through that travel ball process of like, hey, my friends are taking time off and they're doing more things with softball, and we're finding ways to do both, and they're really challenging themselves in both aspects of their life because they want to be high achievers and they're definitely self-motivated. But that efficiency thing is something we actually laugh and joke about. It's part of why Penn, I'm like, yes, you need that scooter to get around. It's not that big of a campus, but we love efficiency, and it's a big part of making sure that you're maximizing your time, and that's, I think, a really big part that motivates our group.
I love it. And you brought up a question for me is some of the uniqueness, because I know the differences between all your universities and some of the environment and culture around them. Can you share a little bit about what makes your Ivy location different? And I'll start with you, Coach Novi. Just what makes yours different and why yours is unique within the Ivy League. What are people attracted to UPenn for?
Wow, that's it's we always joke about this. I don't know if Coach Williams can agree with me, but our schools are so different. All 8 schools are so different. Honestly, people that are probably really attracted to us are not as attractive to Coach Williams, and vice versa, just because of honestly the geography and like what we're surrounded by. We are a city school. Our field is literally has the landscape and the skyline of the city. So we have the amenities of a city while feeling like we're in like a actual college campus by the way that we're protected because of the way we were able to achieve the land. So we definitely have a little bit different environment where if you're somebody that wants to take a step back and really enjoy the nature part of things. I think Coach Williams can speak better to her campus, but I've been there. I've enjoyed it as well. I think there's a lot of really cool things about both of our campuses. So obviously, we're more attractive to people that are geared towards that city life and wanting a little bit more hustle bustle and a little bit more of the amenities. But I will say, I think part of Penn that I think is really unique is we have one of the best business schools in the world. We also have some really attractive majors that are setting you up for success down the line. So definitely a school that is not is research based, but takes a lot of time to make sure that they're preparing you to graduate and have a job.
Coach Williams, just go ahead and take over.
This is just such a funny question for the two of us in particular to answer, as you heard Coach Novi saying. Um, I think the only school that I consider more of a polar opposite to us in terms of geography is probably Columbia, because they're in the middle of New York City, which is even bigger, I guess. But it's always very fun going down to play at Penn because it is so different. It's a beautiful field, but and so is ours. But they're different and they're beautiful in such completely opposite ways. While they have a cityscape along their outfield fence, we have a mountain ridge that's part of the Appalachian Trail, and that then extends up. So we have campers going by with big backpacks on their backs and tents and stuff going up behind our center field fence. So when it comes down to it, it's about as different as you can get. I think that in terms of city amenities, you're definitely not going to find those at Dartmouth, but I think you will find a sense of community and a sense of place that is really unique, where when you're there, you know that you are in Hanover for Dartmouth, and the majority of the town is there for Dartmouth as well. So there's a lot of unity in terms of people knowing who you are and being interested in your sporting events. Our athletes go into Starbucks and the baristas like know whether they won the game the night before and are excited for them about things like that. When they walk across campus, they're always going to recognize somebody and have people to talk to. We're the smallest Ivy League by a pretty significant margin. So our undergraduate population is quite small. Our average class size is about 32 students. That's also very unique within the Ivy League and Division I in general. So for some people, they're hearing that and saying that sounds suffocating being in a place so small. For some people, it's incredibly freeing to be in a place that's small where you feel seen, you feel cared for, and you feel like you can just really explore who you are because everybody has so much room to connect to other people and grow within a small campus. There's different things about the different Ivy League schools that all have appeal. That's some of what appeals for a lot of people who come to us. And one thing we always remind people too is it's 4 years of your life. So maybe you grew up in a more suburban or urban area come check out the mountains for 4 years. And then you can always go back, and most likely your jobs are going to be in urban or suburban areas anyway. So, come live away from all of that for a while and experience what it's like to be a part of such a small, special community. So that's something that we certainly talk to athletes about in our recruiting process.
Love it. And as an advocate in the recruiting process, one of the biggest challenges we get is how do we fund the scholarships for these Ivy Leagues? And Jen, I'll just go back to you, Coach Williams.
I think that the key with this is to have a good understanding of your family's financial situation, and then to make sure that you use all resources available to you to discover what the financial picture is going to look like. That includes the options at the school itself. It includes things like scholarships and things available in your area. It includes understanding that there are certain ins and outs of the Ivy League financial aid process that you can ask coaches about. And we can give you more information about what that looks like to help you figure out if there's ways to make it work for you. I don't mean that we have secret scholarships. I think this is an important thing to know. And I think a lot of us get this question. Coach Novi can chime in if she's gotten this yet or not. I think people really hope that we say there's no scholarships, and then we hit a certain level of recruiting, or maybe it's an athlete we really, really love, and then we can secretly get them a scholarship. I'm afraid that's just not how it works. There is different financial aid systems within the different schools. It's important to talk to the coaches of whoever you're looking to be recruited by and understand the ins and outs of the financial aid process at their institution, and also to understand what is the general hard cutoff for if your family income is below this level, then you're not going to pay anything. For Dartmouth, that's $125,000 a year. It's different at every single school. And you can find a lot of that online, do your research, and then really understand within your family what's possible for you and what makes sense and what do you think could be possible if a place like the Ivy League was on the table for you. And just having really honest conversations about that.
Excellent.
Coach Novi, I'm going to throw it to you next. There's more.
Yes.
This question is a big one. So, Coach Novi, you should take over from here.
Yeah. Financially, it's a really fun one just because it's not really it is a huge part of the process, but it's not the end all be all for us. I think, us being coaches here, we really believe in the model and the fact that you're going to leave here as not only a better athlete, but a better student and as somebody that is going to really contribute to the world. It's part of what attracts us to the Ivy League as well. So I would say, I think a big piece to look at too, and I know the number can be intimidating, Coach Williams threw out there a high number, which honestly, like our number is pretty high too. I believe we're in the 90s right now. But the coolest part about our institutions are really the rate of return. Like it is very different than my experience or some other people's experiences where you go to school, you pay a lot of money, and you leave, and you're like, now what? This place and Ivy League in general is meant to model for you to be successful. So there's a lot of networking, there's a lot of preparation, internships, like coaches referenced earlier. Like that is completely normal. It's not just like oh well, maybe you'll get an internship. Like you will have internships, you will have connections, you will graduate with people that are going to be in your corner in a university that's really going to fight for you to make sure you can achieve what you want to achieve and go where you want to go. So I think when you're looking at the number, sometimes it's intimidating, but when you look at that rate of return, it is next to none in terms of that network and that group of people that are going to be behind you, really driving you into this next chapter of your life.
One thing that I think is
Being that I,
important. Oh,
oh,
sorry, Sherry. I'm going to jump
go
in on
ahead.
that.
Please go. Yep.
One thing I think is important to know about that too is that what Coach Novi is saying about the network, it's not just within Penn or Dartmouth. It's the Ivy League network as a whole as well. So if you're getting hired by somebody who went to an Ivy League school, if I have a kid who's applying for a job and the person hiring for that position is a Penn grad, if there's a Penn grad in there, maybe they'll go to the top of the pile above the Dartmouth kid. Who knows? But that Dartmouth kid's going to be right up near the top because they understand that anyone who comes from this conference is going to have a similar background in training and critical thinking, especially if they were an athlete, then in having to balance and prioritize your time in the ways we've talked about. So it's not just a network within your institution, it's within the Ivy League as a whole. And also just to clarify, that number I threw out, we are at about 90,000 as well. That number I threw out 125 is if your family's collective income is under 125,000, then you will not pay anything to attend Dartmouth. You'll get full coverage. So just to make sure there's no confusion, I don't want rumors about $125,000 price tag on attending Dartmouth because that will get me in big trouble.
Sorry, Jen. I think that was me.
No, I love it. And it's great. And I love you guys interacting this way. And another thing, I came out of the telecom industry 28 years. I'm telling you, hands down, sitting around a table with these great thinkers, as you mentioned, that came out of the Ivy League institution. I saw it with my own eyes. So I'm going to tell you the Ivy League degree is priceless no matter what you go into. I also have a sister in law that does the entrance exam reads for Stanford, and she was a Stanford medical grad. And she said, man, what she would have given for an undergraduate degree coming out of an Ivy League would have been even better going into med school. So the preparation for next level learning is really, really important. So brings up the next question. We've gone through a lot with waiving test scores and test scores in general. What does a general academic read look like? What are the core requirements that they need? And Coach Novi, I'll start with you.
Sure. I think the big things, like I said earlier, was is really rigor. I think, part of the hardest part of the Ivy League is really just making sure you're prepared and that the admissions feel like you're in a good spot to be able to handle the rigor that's ahead of you. So that's really about having the toughest courses that your school can offer while maintaining a balanced schedule and making sure you're excelling in those classes. And I would say that transcript is probably right now the heaviest of focuses amongst the league. People are still all over the place in terms of testing and test optional. I would say that our school really likes to see it and making sure that you're like at least pushing yourself. It's not necessarily about the number, but it's about the commitment to being great and the commitment to doing the extra work. And so I think transcript and just really being willing to test is a big part of the process, but putting more of an emphasis on that transcript piece and really when you look at the process for Ivy Leagues, you got to understand that what they're trying to do is understand number one that you're going to be contributing and being thriving in their environment. So taking those tough courses really sets you up to be in the space where when you're getting challenged to think and to act. That those things you're going to be prepared to do and that you're not just trying to play catch up. But the second piece of that is really that you're going to be able to contribute to the society and the communities that we've built on our campuses, and they really love to know that in our process. It's really about the people and being able to maximize some people that want to be in a place that are going to be challenged by thinkers that are going to be learning from some of the best at their trade, that are really thinking outside the box. And I think people that do well in the league and what they've kind of figured out in this application model is really just having really strong transcripts that speak to your daily work ethic. And the test scores, they found that it really just depends on the student, but honestly, like challenging the showing that you're willing to go the extra mile is really a big deal for us.
I think it's really interesting the last couple of years, especially. So we were test optional during COVID, and then we became test required again a couple of years ago. And since then, I've seen much more of a understanding or an assumption among recruits and their families that testing is the limiting factor to be able to be considered academically competitive. And I am trying to really spread this message, and is part of why I really was excited to come on to this tonight. I think it's really important people understand that testing is the least limiting factor in the application process. Aside, obviously you have to make sure that you have a certain level of everything else going on. But if you have the right transcript, you have the right rigor in classes, you have some additional driver, like Coach Novi was talking about, like whether it's volunteering or whether it's taking some sort of additional class or whether it's joining a club, like, what I usually recommend is try to have one other thing, even if it's a small thing aside from softball, that you do along with school to show like this is something that excites me or that I'm passionate about. Maybe it's just journaling. Maybe you're really passionate about journaling and writing. It can be something like that too. So we recommend that. Testing is the least limiting of all of those things, because testing you can just do as many times as you need to, assuming, and obviously there's some financial restraints there because you have to make sure you can register and all of that. But assuming that you can manage multiple test times, you can just study however you need to. We super score both tests, and you can retest however often you need to make happen. So I really want people to understand that that's one of the easiest things to get done, really, when it comes down to it, compared to your transcript, which you can't redo, and compared to that body of work and that body of passion for academics and for learning that you heard Coach Novi talking about. So I think that's a really important thing for people to take away from this.
Fantastic. And I know we did a podcast previously on some of the makeup test scores and the elevated GPAs and some of the different GPAs. We even see in the state of Texas a 6.0 transcript. And there's just so much variance and so many things that they're moving around. How do you really know you're getting these things that you're looking for? I'll start with Coach Novi.
Yeah, I think I mean I the quote comes to mind. Somebody once told me early in my assistant days that it's more than just a 4.0. So honestly, it just goes back to your school, and the Ivy League doesn't believe in, like giving you consequences maybe for a school that doesn't offer as much as another school. But we're pretty well versed in a bunch of different high schools across the country, and there are people that are, it's their job to make sure they have a better understanding of their curriculum and what is offered. So it goes back to really just making sure you're challenging yourself, and in those courses, taking some of the best, most challenging courses that your high school has to offer, and doing really well in them. I think that's the big piece of this all is, it's about showing the effort, and then creating understanding, whether it's in your wheelhouse or not. Just having a really balanced course load, and making sure that you're pushing yourself to the next limit.
Now, I know one of your other Ivy League partners out there. I don't want to put names out there in case this isn't a good thing. I don't really know how to take it. We just placed a young lady at one of the universities that has the courses that they can just pick. They kind of create their own curriculum. I am questioning, like, how does that equate out to the job force? Is that something that people look at? Are they interested? But creating your own coursework, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, Coach Williams.
I can't really speak for that institution. I'm sure that those coaches know how to really express the ways that that can be an advantage for them and for their graduates. I would say that I think that having an Ivy League degree is really one of the big things that people often look for. And then when you're looking within that degree, there's a bunch of different directions you can go with it. Sometimes the degree that you get really applies to the jobs that you're looking for and really applies to the opportunities you're pursuing. Sometimes that degree does not directly apply at all. And both of those things are possible when you come from an academic institution on the level that ours is. At other places that are not within a academic realm like the Ivy League, that may not be as possible. It may be that whatever you need to study needs to be the direction you're heading in order to be able to progress. Um, so I can't really speak too much to that except to say ask those coaches a lot of good questions about it. Make sure that you really have a good understanding of what they think that can do for you. And I think that employers, that Ivy League degree is one of the best things that they're looking for, and one of the biggest and most important things they're looking for. So just make sure that you really have a good understanding of what a tool that is for you.
Great tip. Coach Novi, any thoughts there?
No, I think that's pretty straightforward. I would agree. I think it's about research. This whole process in general, whether you choose to go academic or not, it's about research and understanding the requirements of the university. Because at the end of the day, it's about being a great student.
Well, and let's go back to Coach Novi here. What are some of the unique things other than location that makes UPenn a great option for the Ivy League?
I think I would go back to the network piece, just because we do have some really amazing majors and people that are continuing to go on different paths. So I would just say I think our network is next to none. We have a really committed board that takes a lot of time to make sure that they're focused on not only obviously efforts to make sure that there's a great experience for our current student athletes, but that mentorship is a really big deal to us. And our network is next to none. I think a lot of our student athletes this past summer, there's probably, like, of the six that were looking for opportunities, I would say half of them were placed with networking amongst the alum. And that's just like a really big piece of what we do, and making sure that you're not only getting opportunities through that grapevine, but like actually preparing you for it as well, like resume building, networking, talking about interview processing, what kind of a job should you be applying for. I think our place is really committed to making sure that you not only are there to graduate and impact the world, but you're going to be able to find your why, and like what you really want to do when you leave, so that you're not just job hunting and hopping around the world making money. They really want to make sure you find your passion. So I think we have a really cool group that does that. And if we don't have it within softball, all, we have 33 varsity sports. Everyone's committed to making sure that people that leave Penn are really proud of their experience, and that we connect that Penn pride further than what is currently there. So I think there's a lot of great opportunities. And like I said, you're setting yourself up for life. I truly believe we're changing trajectories, and people that make that commitment to come into the Ivy League are really just like setting themselves up for life, because they're learning more and getting better networks than they've ever had.
Great. And if you want to stay on mic here, the next question came from the audience. What is the Ivy League recruiting timeline? Do you verbally recruit girls the fall of their junior year, similar to other Division ones?
I'll jump on that first. I think you asked me to. Yes,
Hmm.
I absolutely. I think the big thing here is everybody's story is a little bit different. Like there's some people that we go into the process with, and we recognize, hey, they're completely in line with what it takes to be an Ivy League student academically, and we know that athletically they're already there. Sounds great. We can move forward. I think there's some students that we love them athletically or academically, vice versa, right? And we're just looking for a little bit more time, but we absolutely are able to commit to the process on the earlier side of that, September 1 timeline. It just really depends on your story. And I don't think there's a bad thing about that either. I think the cool part about us is we're not in a rush. We have so many factors that we want to get to know you through, that it's about the relationships. And I'm sure Coach Williams could speak to this too, is we really take a lot of time to get to know our kids. Like, just because we can commit people earlier, if we know those factors, doesn't mean we do, right? We just really want to make sure we're taking the time to get to know the people that are going to impact our programs, because they're going to be the next wave of networking and passing things on and all that other good stuff that really just sets us apart from everybody else. So we take a lot of pride in bringing in people that I think are really going to help us shape our model, but are also going to really respect what this place has to offer.
Coach Jen, did you want to follow up on any of that?
I mean, that sounds great, Coach Novi. No, I think that, for Dartmouth, again, there's a lot of similarities to what you heard Coach Novi say, but Dartmouth offers a little bit of a different flavor to it, again, because we're such a smaller school, but still maintain that high level academic experience. We have graduate schools that are attached to the college here, but are still separate from the undergraduate experience, which I think is a really valuable blend of being able to sit in on classes, shadow at the Tuck School of Business, one of the best business schools in the world, at our engineering school, which actually does have an undergraduate major as well, at the Thayer School of Engineering, as well as Geisel Medical School, which is an incredible medical school and one of the best, attached to one of the best hospital systems in the Northeast. So, we had those graduate offerings, but then the undergraduate population is really the primary focus of the main campus. And that's something that you really feel in terms of research opportunities that are available to undergraduates, in terms of professor access. And I think that's a really important thing. When you go to office hours, when you go to study sessions, those are happening with professors, rather than with TAs or with graduate students. That's something that is really unique to our population up here. And then as a result, things like access to research and internships with those professors is significantly increased as well. So there's a lot of things like that are connected to us being a small community and that being a big part of who we are. And then I think you heard Coach Novi talk about how strong her alumni network is. And I think that every Ivy League has this, just because they're some of the oldest institutions in the world. There's been so much time to develop tradition and pride and those networks that you heard her talking about. At Dartmouth, part of it again is coming back to that community in place. We are currently ranked number 2 in the country in terms of the number of alumni who give back and who give money to the college every single year. And what I always say is that Dartmouth people are obsessed with Dartmouth and also obsessed with other people who went to Dartmouth. And that's something that holds true in the career space. It holds true in, leadership spaces and in mentorship and guidance, and including right from the minute that you meet up with an alumni who's a part of your admissions process, which you can do as a part of being admitted. I've had people who, in their application and admissions process, met up with an alumni who they stay connected to through their entire time here, because that person is usually in your region and as somebody the college is connecting you to, so that you feel like you have some understanding of what you're going to be walking into at Dartmouth. there's people, and the other thing that I think is great about it is also just you walk around and like we're out recruiting, and at least once a recruiting trip somebody sees us wearing Dartmouth and says, oh well, my cousin went there, or my uncle went there, or my aunt went there and she loved it. And it's just a place that really resonates with people in a way that I've never seen at any other place I've coached or attended. And it's pretty humbling to realize what an impact the place has had on people. And you can tell that by how many people come back for our homecoming and alumni events every year. They have a parade for just alumni every homecoming, and it's hundreds and hundreds of people large. It's pretty intense. So that alumni network is a huge part of things for us as well.
And let us not forget the last CSA student athlete we had there stayed and is working at Dartmouth. So, bravo.
Exactly. She's working for our publicity and marketing department. And I will say, just to give her a little plug, she also won the Halloween office door decorating contest this past year. So,
Oh my gosh, will
and
you give her a big, big hug from Texas for us?
I will. Well, and more importantly, she was also the Ivy League Player of the Year her senior year, which is probably the thing
That
she would prefer me share first.
That's right, Billy Mack. That's right, Billy Mack. We love her. So another thing that came up in our recruiting over these last 10 years is the language when you commit to Ivy. And people say, oh, well, it just sounds like I'm really not, committed because it says upon acceptance. Well, hello, it's that way for every institution. You don't just get to verbal to your softball program, but you actually have to enter the university. So if you do not get accepted at other universities, your verbal is irrelevant anyways. Any other thoughts on how they put that together, Coach Novi?
Yeah, I think we're really respectful of the terms and understanding that it is a really challenging application process. But just like anything else, it's about research and it's about having a background to say like I know, I know with confidence that there's a high percentage that I can go through this route because we do our due diligence in the back end. And I've worked at many institutions, like you said, and it's very it's always very similar. Like you still have to apply to school. I don't know if people don't think that you have to, but you do. You still have to apply to school. And I think our part is we talk a lot about just taking it seriously and making sure that you're paying the respect to the people that are going to be your peers and your classmates, and making sure that you all are competing for those spots.
Coach Williams, any thoughts there?
Nope, I think that she summed it up pretty well. You just need to make sure you're
Awesome.
being careful with your language and talk to your individual coaches about guidance for that.
Wonderful. And the next one that comes up, and I did not put this on our list, so if you don't have a lot of knowledge about it or want to chat about it, feel free to just pass. What about the portal, and what about transfers? Is that affecting the Ivy League?
Did you want me to? I can jump into that.
Yes, sure.
So I think that this is also an individual institution question. I will say that as far as compared to the rest of Division One, the portal is impacting the Ivy League less, certainly, just because we have the Ivy League institutions generally do not accept as many transfers as non-Ivy League Division One institutions do. So that is something that does impact us. I also would say another big factor for us is that our deadline for when most transfers happen, which is in the spring, looks very different than the rest of Division One. So you have to have everything in and submitted to admissions by June 15th in the Ivy League, and that's a very early deadline for a lot of people. For the right student athlete, it works. We have had that work for a transfer who ended up opting to go elsewhere, but we had everything lined up and ready to go. It's possible, but it is something that requires a lot of forward thinking and really hopping on things quick and being ready to move quick, just because of the deadlines for us. And generally, the college just does not accept that many transfers, so it would be rare in the league. It is happening, but it's not impacting our recruiting process or the size of our recruiting classes nearly as much as you see at the rest of Division One.
Yeah, excuse me. I think the only thing I would add to that is, we are not looking for transfers with the opportunity for graduate experience. It's just not something that the Ivy League supports. We're not created equal across the board, and that's a good part of us, is we want to make sure that it's a fair, level playing field. So we don't have the opportunity for the graduate position. So when we're looking at transfers, we're really looking in that undergrad part. And like Coach Williams, insinuated, there's definitely some short timelines in terms of softball and when the Ivy League needs you to like kind of apply and make sure that you're all set to go. But I don't think it's impossible. I just don't think it's like the end all be all for us. I think the cool part about that, and it's actually a really big part of who I am as a coach too, having worked at other institutions and being able to actually utilize the transfer portal. I will say it's not my favorite. I think knowing people that go into the portal, there's a definitely a small percentage that are looking for a better fit, but there's actually a large percentage that are looking for better opportunities. And to me, I'm just a very loyal person, and I think that we've found a lot more success of committing to our people that come to our schools and spending a lot of time and investment on them, and really just like creating that community. And sometimes the transfer portal makes things go in and out, but it's not saying that it's a bad thing. It's not saying that it's impossible, but it's definitely something that when we are looking in the transfer portal, we are digging harder at those people and making sure that they are really the right fit for our places, knowing the timeline, knowing all the other things that are going into it. So I would just say that I think that undergrad focus is a big part of the Ivy League with that. And if it's something that people are looking to do, it's not impossible, but you have to be like all in right from the beginning for it to be a true possibility.
Awesome. And then I'll keep your mic open there, Coach Novi. What about the roster caps and the potential of full rides? Is that something that the Ivy League's considering? Or I think there was some talk about becoming employees of the university. Any thoughts on that?
I can't speak much to the financial side, but I think the roster size doesn't directly impact us. We've been operating at full strength for a while, so I think it's from what it sounds like the full roster size is what it is. It's something that we'll obviously be in the process to support, but that's not something that's necessarily going to be a big end all be all and cutting opportunities for people to be in our space.
I don't really have much to add to that. I think that there's changes coming in Division One as a whole, so keep up with it. The Ivy League is going to be looking a little bit different though within those changes, and we'll know more as we figure out more about it in the spring.
Excellent. That's more the answer that I was expecting, because I think everybody's just kind of waiting for a couple more decisions to come down, but just wasn't sure if you had any additional insight. So I want to remind the audience that if it's okay with Coach Jen and Coach Novi, that they friend you, and let them know that they were on here tonight. And then I want to put out a pitch that I really think you have to attend a camp in Ivy League and get to know the culture and the environment, and send them your transcripts. Make sure that you're online and that you're showing up academic appropriate, and spend that extra time, because I think it is such an important and such a valuable experience in the outcome, that I would encourage you guys to get on campus. Any additional thoughts, Coach Novi?
Yeah, I think it goes back to that self motivation. If you're thinking about this, it's worth exploring and finding out what it takes to do it. Like, I honestly think you'll be pleasantly surprised. It's about doing your research, getting yourself on campuses, finding out what you like. I've toured a lot of campuses when I came to my decision, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But you have a checklist of things that are probably ridiculous or but important to you. Like, I felt really strongly about having grass where grass should be and flat ground where flat ground should be. But apparently I'm very into landscaping and probably in the wrong field for that. But just like thinking about like finding the right fit. And that's really, I think, what's going to help us change this landscape of feeling the need to find bigger and better. It's about like, if you can take your time in this process, which is why we've done what we've done as a sport, is to make sure that you have the time to figure out what's going to work best for you and get to know those options out there, and find the fit that really feels like home. So just, I think my big takeaway here is like, there's not a big rush. I don't care who says there's a big rush. There's not a big rush. You will always find a home, and there's a home for everybody. So make sure you take your time, do your research, and really get to know the people. Like, if you want to be coached by somebody, get to know what they look like, not just in a practice setting, but a camp setting, and honestly at a game. Like, if we look different, I think that's a big deal. So make sure you get to know your people, because those are going to be the people you commit to and you actually work with for the rest of your life.
Coach Jan, any thoughts on that?
I think with camps, it's important to consider exactly how it's being run and what's being done at those camps, and to try to figure out, does this feel like a showcase to me, or does this feel like a practice to me? um, Obviously, depending on the size of the camp, that may or may not be possible, but I would say if it's so big that it's not possible to make it feel a little bit more like a practice, then the chances of you being seen well at that camp are smaller. So you want a camp to feel as much like a practice of that institution as it possibly can. And the more that you feel like you're attending essentially an expanded practice, or an elongated practice, the better sense you're getting for exactly what Coach Novi was saying, which is there consistency from who we are when we're talking to you in our office to who we are out at camp to who we are out on the field. And I really couldn't agree with her more. The consistency there, the integrity there is really, really important. If you have coaches that are really giving you different signals depending on the setting, that's something you need to be thinking about a little bit. And also, if the players telling you one thing and then acting in a different way when you're watching them practice or something like that, that also is something you need to explore. So camps give you a little bit more insight into that, and just make sure that the way it's being run feels like it's something that's giving you information. It's not just a showcase. You're going to have plenty of opportunities to showcase in front of us. Coming to a camp should give you a lot of information about how we do things.
Fantastic. And a little plug for CSA in there. One of our other advocates from Texas is on here, Dion Hill. We actually do a camp prep. We treat it like a tryout, and a place where they can really find out whether or not it's the right fit. But learning to compete at that level, and whether or not that level of competition is what they're looking for. So there's so many aspects of it. You mentioned, getting to know the people. I always say, find out if they're your peeps, right? And make sure it's the place you're going to spend the next 4 years of your life. They're going to be your bridesmaids, your friends for life. So I think it's real important that you have somebody coaching you through the process of every step along the way. So I want to thank you guys again for coming, and make sure you friend each other and share this space. It was recorded, and we'll be back again on Monday. But it's been very informative, and we thank you guys so much. And Coach Williams and Coach Novi, as I said at the beginning, you're two of my favorites. So I just honor when you guys take the time to educate and reach out and give more to the prospective student athletes. So thank you again, everybody, and we'll see you next Monday at 7 o'clock Central Time.